I know you sent me stuff, and I'm gonna look at it. But I think we need to talk about it. Today is daylight savings time, and I think we both look like it's daylight savings time,
Yeah, we do.
which is a frustrating universal feeling. I'm actually surprised that there's not a single like movie. This is sometimes it's art related. Uh, there's not like a single movie where daylight savings time is like part of the story. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? You still haven't found the tripod yet? We're still sponsored by Godiva?
Yeah, we're still sponsored by Godot.
Oh, no. Um,
And also, it's sitting on a box of Kleenex tissues, so we're sponsored by Godiva and Kleenex tissues.
we're sponsored by Sad Valentine's Day.
Exactly.
Uh, so
Well, good morning, Brandon.
good morning, Andrew. Start that timer. But yeah, it's a thing about daylight savings time. I feel it's one of the few things that's universally hated. Like, is
Mhm.
there a daylight savings time lobby I need to know about? Because I've never felt more like this is an easy thing that we should just not do anymore, or do it like a crazy person and only go back an hour or only go forward an hour, so that time slowly shifts every 24 years and it's on a 24
Yeah,
year cycle. Maybe we do it.
I like that idea a lot, actually.
Yeah, I think shift if we're gonna do time, at least partially, numbers and time feel like kind of weirdly made up. Let's really lean into the made upness of it
Mhm.
all.
Yeah, and I'm
Uh,
kind of like imagining like a world where that could actually happen. Well, I mean, the thing is, like, there is precedent for it because, and at least in the sense of lifestyle, because, what is it, like Alaska or parts of Russia,
mhm.
parts of that, are entirely
Dark for days,
dark for
well,
parts of the
months at
year.
a time, weeks at a
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
So,
Uh,
and they survive, why can't we?
yeah. Also, they're entirely light for weeks at a time too, which is
Exactly. Yeah.
really is weird. I've actually been to Alaska when that had happened,
No,
and
oh, no
we
way. You never told me
yeah.
that.
I had family up there, and it was a young vacation,
Yeah.
but all I remember is how weird it always being light is,
Hmm.
and how much like your body is like, huh, it's 11 o'clock. Like your inner clock just goes
Hmm.
nuts and has no idea what to do.
Yeah.
Uh, and you're just like, I don't know, I'm asleep now, I'm awake now, and maybe you'd get used to it eventually, but our
Yeah.
bodies don't want to live there. Like
Right.
it's
Right.
your body goes, this is terrible. I don't want to do
Hmm.
this. Uh,
Well, I wonder if we did actually, do that thing where it's just back or just forward an hour, so
mm,
over 24-year cycle. I mean, I wonder if we would adjust our work schedule as well to still want to sleep at night or still want to sleep, or if the time would just stay the same.
I feel like the trick of it is you can't
Mhm.
move anything else around it. You
Right.
can't be like, okay, so time has moved. You need to move your work schedule. If you go in at 10, you go in at 10 no
We
matter
just got to
what.
commit.
It's just
Yeah.
yeah, we have to all commit to it for this bit to work. Like
Hmm.
you can't do half measures on this one. We all have to be equally
Yeah.
crazy.
You got to be in.
Well, you know
And
why clocks, you know why time I mean time wasn't unified until trains, right?
mm,
Or at least that's what everyone says, because you had a clock and you would go into a town and it would be like, okay, it's 10:35 and like on the big clock, and then you would go,
mhm,
oh, cool, it's 10:35, and you would live off that clock. And if you go to the next town and they said it was 10:50, well, it was 10:50 for everybody. Like
mhm,
that, the unification of time happens because of trains, because all trains need to run they're fast enough where they need, and you don't want them to run into each other.
mhm,
So all trains need to be on the same clock. So we didn't unify clocks until trains.
mhm.
That's the big unification when it happens. And then I don't know why I don't have an I would love, you ever have a moment where you're like, oh, I'm the boring one?
Oh, yeah, all the time, of course.
Yeah, yeah. Well, but there's where you're like, man, if there was like a 12-part podcast about daylight savings time, I would listen to at least 8 of those parts.
Oh, yeah. Um, well, I think that time is interesting. And well, the thing is, like, I'm a night owl as well, and
Mhm,
I've been well, I go through phases. Right now I'm in a phase where I stay up late, working or um reading or whatever, or sometimes just doing nothing. I mean, but for whatever reason, I'm in a phase where I'm staying up late.
Mhm.
But I've been through phases where it's been the opposite, where I'll go to bed early and wake up at like 2 or 3 in the morning.
Mhm.
So and honestly, like both of those I like a lot. It's because it's kind of the same. Either way, it's kind of the same. Like you're not, you don't have to. Most of the world is asleep, so you can get your work done. You
Yeah.
can collect your thoughts, you can get everything done. And so either of those like works in a similar way. And honestly, like the only difference really is that I think like if I go to bed early and I wake up early, there's still a little grogginess, if I wake up 2 in the morning, um but there's a certain refreshed feeling,
Mhm.
that comes, I think, with waking up with the dawn and, you know, getting
I
outside,
d-
doing a little exercise and that kind of thing.
Let me tell you, I loved waking up early and doing and like that level of willpower though is something that got stripped away from me during pandemic time,
Yeah.
honestly. And like you really if you're gonna wake up early, you really gotta wake up and be willing to face a day. And that's hard. It's hard, man.
Hmm.
Um, but I used to love waking up early, and then like the will to continue was stripped out. And like I'm gonna wake up right before work nowadays. But I do think that for me, part of my creation process is community is great and it's
Hmm.
important, but in the creation process, at some point, I'm gonna need some solitude.
Hmm.
Um, and like I need the ability to kind of be a weirdo and pace around and like mumble and murmur to myself while I make. And if other people are around, I can't have the yeah. It's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. I'm fine. Over and over again.
Yeah.
Does you do you have that as well? Like I think you can create with people absolutely, but
Yeah.
also occasionally and probably on a regular basis, you sort of need madness time, for lack of a better term, and that's either
Yeah.
late or early. You can't do that. You can't do madness easily in the middle of the day.
Yeah, it's absolutely true because it's first of all, it's a different feeling, but also I think mostly it's what you're saying. Like there are people around. I mean, and it's not just even if you're in your house. I mean, there's still people texting you or calling you or whatever. So it's like just the world is up and active. But if you have that time to really just kind of be to yourself, where there's no texting, no nothing going on, it's like and actually last night is actually a good example of that because so I mean I've been getting backed up on this mini project that eventually we'll talk about, but on the podcast, just because of other things. And I was like, God damn it! All right, I'm gonna get this done before we record the podcast. And so, so last night, I mean, like both emails that I sent you, I think were pretty late, if I remember correctly.
Dude, I didn't
And
see him till this morning, and I haven't
yeah,
looked at him yet. If I'm being honest, because I woke up because I did something I very rarely do. We talked about this before, and is I partied last night a little bit,
yeah,
and I I shouldn't have. I regret it now.
mhm.
Even though I placed it well, I still regret it
Yeah,
because there is it is that thing where you wake up and you're like, oh man, I stole time from today to
yeah,
shove more time in the night before,
exactly.
and
Well,
with daylight savings time, that happened doubly so. And I'm like, oh, okay,
yeah,
let's talk about daylight savings time. Uh,
yeah. Well, yeah, and so I've been working on this like throughout the week, but I knew like I had a choice. Like last night, I was like, okay, I can either do this now, like, or I knew I was gonna have time today to finish it, but I was like, no, I've got to freaking finish this like right now,
yeah,
And so I just had to have that like madness time, like you're talking about, just to like kind of burn through it and finally get
yeah,
it
you
done.
need to carve out madness time.
Yeah, exactly. And that's and I definitely notice part like if I'm well, and ironically actually, I if I don't have that madness time, then I definitely feel my life getting out of balance, which is sort of it's like the madness starts to creep into the times where it's not supposed to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not gonna not happen, and
Yeah.
you need if I know it's something we talked about before. I don't know if this is true for people who work in more traditional job fields,
Mhm.
but you need to do all the work part of the work. I'm not saying you don't. I'm never gonna say that, but you do need time where you're the mad genius alone in your lab making stuff, or you will become the mad genius everywhere. Like
Mhm.
you need the space. You need to carve out. You need to selfishly carve out space and time for you to be a weirdo
Mhm.
alone and go, does this work? Does this work? Because most of it isn't going to work. So that when you
Exactly.
do
Yeah.
go, does this work as a final product? You can you've cheat. I think in art, one of the big cheats is that you don't tell anybody, and I think everyone knows this, but you don't know it till you do it, is how much it's just like bullheaded repetition,
Mhm.
and like how much of it is just alone time failing so that you can success time in front of other people.
Yeah.
And that's embarrassing and hard, but it's, I think your alone time is something that you have to hold really sacred. And
Yeah.
like you have to, I know 2 days a week I go to I go to a studio and I work on my t-shirts and I work on string stuff and I work on digital stuff and I do it other times as well. But those 2 times a week, I talk to my wife. She knows that's mine. You know,
Mhm.
like that's, I got to do this. I will. I She can come sometimes, but you know, I work 6 hours, and the first 4 hours are very constructed and very like, and then we make this, and then we make
Mhm.
this, and the last 2 hours are very like, and then I have an idea and I talk
Yeah.
to myself, and you know what I mean, and I pace around.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important to carve that time out. It's gym time, but it's, yeah, if you want to get buff, you got to go to the gym. And but if you want your brain to make things, you have to go to your brain gym.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is a good analogy because with both of them, you have to commit to it. You have to, and you have to build the muscles,
yeah,
in whatever way it is, because it's going to happen over time, and there's just so many connections you can make with that. Absolutely, I think.
yeah, and
Um,
I know we keep saying it, but I do also think like you have to give yourself permission to do that so that you
mhm.
don't do it elsewhere. Like you have to be
Yeah.
like, this is my space to do this, so that you can go be a normal human being and interact like, you know, a grown up everywhere else, because you can't be like that constantly. That's terrible.
Yeah.
But you need the space so that you can't, if you don't have, you need that space so that you can act like a person.
Yeah. And I think probably, we're talking about the context of artists and musicians, but I think probably everybody needs to have that in some way,
Mhm.
shape or form. Like even if they're not creating something, it's still good to have time. I mean, this is something that that I kind of think about, because I've definitely seen my life change. I think, with the fact, and I'm not the first person to say this, but we have everything on our phones, and like, actually, I remember somebody saying on a podcast one time, like, we no longer, like, if we don't want to be bored,
Mhm.
then we don't have to be anymore,
Yeah.
and and we've sort of taken away that time, where we can just sort of let our brain uh wander. I mean, that doesn't have to happen anymore. And I definitely noticed that with me. um I'm definitely guilty of, standing in line or whatever and like pulling up my phone and sometimes doing something constructive, like, a brain game or whatever, but sometimes not, just like pulling up, Facebook or TikTok or whatever, yeah, doom
Yeah.
scrolling.
And
um
it,
yeah, and honestly, that frustrates me, because I'm like, okay, I know that I need to have that time, like, to be bored
yeah.
sometimes.
And I've been thinking about doom scrolling a lot lately because I'm real bad at it.
Mhm.
And like how fast 30 seconds can turn into 30 minutes and
Oh
you don't
yeah,
even feel
yeah,
it. And like we know, but we've known that's a problem since, because doom scrolling and channel surfing are cousins,
sure.
right?
Hmm.
And like we've known channel surfing is a problem forever, you know,
Hmm.
and just tiny little bits of information. And it's so, especially like the world is so hard, but also, yeah, it kind of is,
Hmm.
right? You know, that it's so easy to just kind of disappear and become this sort of literally shriveled thing, just
Hmm.
doing this.
Yeah.
And like, I can't blame people. I certainly, I find myself doing it too, but I find myself very frustrated
Hmm.
that I can fall into it so easily. You know,
Hmm.
this started as a conversation about daylight savings time and a crazy back idea. But I also think when you carve out that time for yourself, you carve out that time to not doom scroll, to go,
Yeah.
okay, I need to do it. Or maybe you can also carve out that time to doom scroll so that you go, okay, I did it. It felt
Right.
terrible, but it's done, you know?
Well,
So
that's true. Yeah. I mean, like, I guess like carving out time doesn't have to be for um, healthy pursuits all the time. I mean, you can carve out time to doom scroll and, get drunk and have hangovers. I mean, like, that's
yeah.
okay too, I
I
guess.
mean, if you're gonna party, you shouldn't party in such a way that it always screws you up.
Right.
You should place. You're gonna doom scroll. You're gonna party at some point. You I want to be clear. My partying was having over a night, so from sunset to sunrise, 4 whole beers. That was my whole party. So that should be noted.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I was like, yeah, going crazy. I am a meek little man now. But I do think it's important to like be human and set aside time that says I am still a person and
Right.
I can't be perfect. So accept that for me and then move forward and figure out when you can be good at stuff.
I like that. I
Lay
think
down.
that's a good place to end.
Go lay down. Yeah.